Sometimes people get wrong ideas in their heads. They choose to live with it, and then they wake up and realize the world is passing them by. That's when you know they're ready for a change. My name is Rory. I'm 35. Don't laugh. My father comes from an old Ohio German family, but my mother's family comes from Belfast. My older sister got the name Lena, so I feel like I got the better end of the deal. But this story isn't about my sister, it's about a woman, Erica, who spent a couple of years mistaking bad decisions for fun, then cutting herself off from relationships, and how she learned to trust me. There's also the mistake that nearly broke me, but thankfully she changed course and came back before she crossed the point of no return. Before I go into my story, I want to thank the We Are the Music Makers YouTube channel. They love good stories, stories about good men, stories about women who make mistakes but still deserve to be loved, stories about the decisions we make and how they affect our lives. This is how I get to tell my story. And if you like my story, give it a like and hit subscribe for more stories about love, trials, and reconciliation. No AI slop here. Anyway, my story begins about a year ago. I drive oversized vehicles of many kinds, a lot of CDL vehicles, and I have to get a physical every other year. I was sitting in a doctor's waiting room, and this cute redhead behind the desk hands me the forms I need to fill out. When I turned them in, she looked up at me. CDL medical screening. I nodded. Trucker? I shook my head. Box trucks, small buses, cement trucks, whatever the dispatch wants driven, I drive it. She smiled. Something new every day. One time I drove Bigfoot down Main Street. She looked up. Like the real monster truck? I nodded. One of the older models. Yes. She leaned in. Did you get to crush cars? I shook my head. That's not in the CDL handbook. She laughed. It was a bright, cheerful laugh that said she wasn't afraid to be vulnerable. We chatted for a minute. Then a nurse called me in. An hour later, I had a stern talk from the doctor about my exercise habits, a severe dislike for the letter Q from the eye chart, and an updated medical clearance to keep driving commercial vehicles. I stopped at the receptionist's desk once more. She eyed me. Renewed for 2 years? I nodded. Seems a shame that you won't be back for 2 years. That felt like an invitation. I picked up an appointment card and wrote my name and my phone number on it. It does seem a shame, so maybe we could get together a little before then. I pushed the card across the counter. She hesitated, then picked it up, looked at it, then at me, and offered a half smile. How much sooner? She asked. I thought for a second. Friday night? There's this cool mini golf complex where we can have real food, no windmills, and air conditioning. Oh, really? She said. Then she looked down. I have some baggage, I thought for a minute. If given a chance, are you capable of a relationship? She stared at me. I think so, I shrugged. Then a first date won't hurt anything, will it? She looked down, then at me. No, I guess not. She thought for a bit. Okay, Friday night. She paused again. Pick me up? I nodded. 7 p.m. here or your place. She thought for a second. My place. She paused for a moment. I'm Erica. Great, I'm Rory. Text me your address when it's convenient. Wait, she said. What if you're a creepy stalker? I shrugged. Then I'll probably be really bad at mini golf. She laughed at that, thanked me for the date, and told me she'd text. On Friday afternoon, she sent a text. Her apartment was in a medium-ish part of town. Corinth, a neighborhood where nothing was wrong, but no one was rushing to build homes there either. Houses built in the 70s. Rent isn't exactly cheap, but it was better than living near the mall. Lots of fixer-upper homes. Her address was part of a duplex. I got out and knocked. She came out in a yellow blouse and a blue jean skirt. It wasn't hot, but it was attractive, like the real kind of attractive where you wanted to move close to her. I composed myself. You look great, I remarked. Oh, this thing? She said, but her voice and smile said that she was pleased at the compliment. She followed me to my car, and we made for the Big Greens. I had heard of it. They were popping up across the country, but nothing could prepare you for the experience. Full-size greens, not the 20-foot gimmicks you'd see at the beach or at some tourist trap city. Real golf balls, good quality putters, real grass, since the place felt like a greenhouse. We played around, and it was a refreshing experience. Since there were no screaming clowns or electric pirates, the vast space made it feel like we were alone. Every putt. We looked at each other. It probably drew away our focus, but this was more fun. She got a hole-in-one on hole 3, and she smirked for 13 holes. On hole 17, her ball went into the sand. I lined up, looked up, hit the ball, and it made a few lucky bounces and went right into the hole. There was my hole-in-one. That doesn't count, she claimed. You weren't even looking. I walked over, pulled my ball out, and watched as she four-putted from the sand. She growled, then looked at me and said, "You were buying an appetizer for this." "Fine," I said, "but I'm going to make you think about a kiss before we're done." "Kissing on the first date?" she questioned, but with thinking about it, she said, like an admission. "About what?" I asked. "Kissing. If there was one thing I learned, it's that if a woman says she's thinking about something, she really means she expects it." I dropped my putter, gently grabbed her shoulders, and kissed her, right there on the big green's 18th hole. When the kiss was over, I looked around, and there were already people waiting on us. "How about we call off the last hole? After that kiss, I already feel like I won." "Ogre," she said, "thinking only with your lips," she added, still holding me. But we parted and went over and picked up her ball from the putting green. Then I looked over at the waiting party and waved them on. "We're done. You can finish your round. Dinner?" I suggested, pointing at the tables on the far side of the building. She nodded, but I think there was a sadness in her eyes. We went over, got seated, ordered drinks, and I noticed she was already acting shy. I took a sip of my beverage. Then I pulled out a coin. "Penny for your thoughts." She smiled a little. "That's a dime." "Fine, I want some really good thoughts." She smiled and then got quiet again. When I was in college, and then for a couple years after, I was running pretty wild. She dated every man who spoke to me, drank too much, made some mistakes, burned some friends. She shook her head. "I have some regrets." I nod. "We all probably do." "Yeah," she said. A waiter came by and ordered a plate of wings. She looked at me. "You said you wanted an appetizer," I remembered. She nodded, then pointed at me. "You're pretty smooth. You're making this hard." I raised an eyebrow. "I'm trying to have a moment of character growth." I made one of those oh moment without speaking. Anyway, I course corrected, but maybe I took that too far too. Instead of going out with any man I met, I started finding fault with every man around. Too short. You know what that means, right? Or he's wearing a t-shirt and jeans into the office. He must be poor. I looked back over about 5 years and realized I hadn't been on a date for a long time. I tried to tell myself that I was too much woman for most men. She sighed. "I think I was too picky." Our wings came, and I handed her a plate. She looked sad, like she realized something too late. So I asked her something to keep the conversation going. "When did you realize you needed to fix things?" She looked up at me. "Right about the first time you smiled at me." She went quiet. I was beginning to decide smiles too much, but then I asked why that was a problem. "So when you came back out, I decided to see if I could get your attention." She smiled at me. I laughed. "You already had it. I just wasn't sure if I could get yours." She tossed a celery stick at my plate. "I think I'm seeing you," she remarked with a wry grin. I picked up the celery and bit into it. "That's mine," she said. I held it up. "What will you do to get it back?" She surprised me. 10 seconds after I asked, she took her foot and rubbed it against my leg. She must have removed her shoe and was smiling. I stared at her, unable to say anything. She smiled at me, then held out her hand. I handed her back the celery, and as if to make a point, she threw it right back at my plate. But she also held her leg against mine. We agreed to keep seeing each other. I won't say where or when, but when our lips parted for the last time, it was satisfying to know that this was not a single encounter. As we talked, we realized we had different but intersecting interests. I liked exploring, she liked diners, and that made dating so much fun. She'd find a little diner in a city an hour away, and I would figure out 4 places to go, both before and after. She'd follow me as I explored every inch of a retro video game store or a flag shop. She'd hold up a little flag of Italy, and I'd point to the small pile that included flags of the 82nd Airborne, the Republic of China, and a full-size Betsy Ross flag. But when we stopped at Elsie's Diner, established 1938, she would order 6 items. She even took away my menu. She breathed in the air and knew what was good. One time, she stepped into a little place with only a counter and said, "Pot roast." The waitress looked up at us, smiled. "That's our secret item. Everyone in town knows about it." "How did you know?" Erica looked at me and grinned. "I know the smell of simmering vegetables and wet beef like a dog knows the smell of his master from a shirt that was found in the drawer." The waitress looked at me, she eyebrows up. I just said, "We'll probably be eating pot roast." I liked historical sites and she liked to draw. We'd end up at a place where a historical figure had a duel, or where some battle raged for 3 days, or even pass by where some explorer crossed for the very first time. We'd spend 30 minutes walking together, and then she'd go back to the car and get her drawing materials. I'd walk around a little, and when I'd get back, she'd have the outline of the landscape. I'd suggest a detail or two, and for an hour she'd quietly draw. Maybe I'd find a place to grab Cokes, or sometimes I'd quietly be on my phone, but after an hour she'd stop. "That's enough. I can do enough of the rest when I'm on my own." On our next date, she would show me the finished project on her phone, and it was always charming. At a battlefield where I had been particularly excited, she actually brought me the finished drawing. I leaned over and kissed her, but things slowly changed. She spent more time at work. Dates became fewer. Visits were less common. I'd ask her if anything was wrong, and she told me I wouldn't understand. Texts began falling off. It went from texting several times daily, to one each day, to a few times each week. And then I noticed I had made the last 5 texts, not realizing she had stopped. I looked at my call log. We hadn't talked in the last week. 2 calls to her went unanswered. I'm a professional driver. If someone cuts you off, you recalibrate. You slow down and you make sure their stupidity doesn't cause an accident. Because even if insurance covers it, a damaged vehicle doesn't make money. When someone isn't responding to your texts, they don't have to tell you what it really means. An older man once told me, "Closure is a lie. You can talk all you want, but it never ends up feeling better." I think this was what he meant. I perused her Facebook and Instagram just to remember her face. And right about the time thing went silent, she put up a post, "Never settle for anything less than what you deserve," captioning a picture of her standing near the river. I know that scene. I took that picture of her and sensed it to her. Well-intended or not, the message was clear. I did not meet her standards. A friend of hers came to my work, handed a box of my stuff. She didn't want to make things awkward. I looked down at the items of mine that she had cleared up and gathered together. Then I looked at the friend. If she had thought I didn't deserve to be with her, she could have told me that day in the doctor's office. I sighed. It would have hurt less. For 3 months, I was mostly alone. I hadn't been trying very hard, and sitting in a box truck isn't the kind of vehicle that turns heads. I didn't like traveling alone. The gas and the miles are only worth it when someone who really understands you is sitting in the passenger seat. So the day trips pulled way back. I took more hours at work, got overtime, and basically just lived. I saw Erica at a coffee shop once. She was with some friends. I'm not in the habit of running away from uncomfortable situations. I once drove 25-passenger bus down a pier just because the company wanted to get photos. It was a massive risk, and it made me sweat, but I had a good spotter, and we got the job done. So I sat in that coffee shop, didn't focus on her, and oddly, Erica approached me. Hey, I hope you're not mad at me?" I shook my head. "I wanted to let you know I had a great time while we were dating." "Me too," I said. "You did?" I took a sip. "Honestly, best 6 months of my life. Hoped it would go on forever." "Really?" she asked. I nodded. Well, She hesitated. "I'll see you around," and then she turned and practically ran out of the shop. Over the next few weeks, I'd check my social media, and she'd leave a thumbs up, or sometimes a heart on my posts. Then maybe a month after that coffee shop, there was a text. "Hey Rory, thinking about you." I texted back. "Thanks, I think about you too." An hour passed after that. "Really?" I let a little time pass. "Yeah." Then that evening, "You want to get together again? Meet for coffee?" This was where I was uncomfortable. "Erica, I've been seeing your social media, and I'm not sure I'm the one who will ensure that you're living your best life." It was 11 o'clock that night before I got a text back. "Please?" I couldn't ignore something like that. I sighed to myself, but I just messaged back. "Caribou on 12th, 10 a.m. tomorrow." She left a heart as a reaction. The next morning, I got up and dressed a little better than I do for work. Coffee, maybe a pastry, and talking to the woman who had quietly disappeared. Not my idea of a good time, but if she wanted to be told that our time was meaningful, but that I had moved on, I could give her that. I arrived at 10 and found her already sitting there. She jumped up when I arrived, hugged me, and pulled me to the table. "I ordered for you, iced coffee with cream and sweet and low." She had remembered. It was a nice gesture. "I suppose I owe you an explanation," she began. I shrugged. "You really don't owe me anything." She shook her head. "No, Rory, I know what I did. I left you hanging. You had shown me nothing but affection and good feelings, but I got to listening to a couple bad friends, and I disappeared from your life. I didn't even give you the dignity of a breakup or an explanation. They convinced me that I didn't need you and that I should be playing the field. But the moment I realized you had let me go, they disappeared on me." She sighed. "I'm not trying to put the blame on them. I was stupid. I let myself believe that a 32-year-old woman working as a medical receptionist deserved better than a CDL driver." She sighed. "I'm sorry, Rory. I spent the last month wishing I hadn't been so stupid. I'll block those friends if you want. I'll make sure they don't infect my thoughts and turn me against you." She reached out for my hand. I didn't stop her, but I wasn't warm in return. "Erica, a man isn't a faucet. You can't just turn off and turn on the good feelings again. The wound is scarred over. Your touch burns. I don't mean that literally, but it's a reminder that you burned me emotionally." Now she's in that sobbing phase before the tears come down. "It hurt me to see it, but I've been hurting the whole time. Rory, I'm sorry. I know that I hurt you. I could feel the pain I was inflicting, even as I refused your calls back then. I've learned my lesson. All the dating and partying I've done for the last few months feels like a lie compared to our time together. I went out with the more adventurous friends, but every time a guy approached, I just kept comparing him to you." She looked down. "Now I know that I was missing you." There was a long pause. Suddenly, I was feeling a little better. She was telling me I was the worthy one now. Up until this moment, the entire time the message was that I wasn't good enough. But now she's admitting I was the best. "Please, Rory, ask me to go to Big Greens again. That's where I fell in love with you, and I'd like to have that all over again." It would have taken a stronger, or maybe harder man, to refuse that. Maybe I was going to be more cautious. Maybe I'd watch her actions, call her out if she seemed to be pulling away. But something in me whispered that she realized what she had had, and she was determined not to mess it up again. When I did ask her, she held up her end of the bargain by blocking the friend who had helped her to go silent on me. I kept my guard up for a month, paid attention to who she was talking to, and looked for red flags for 3. By 6 months, we were better than we had been. Erica still says I'm the man she sees in her dreams, and I love the way she kisses me. So in the end, by being careful as a man the same way I do when I drive a bus, I kept steady, and she eventually came back because my presence is what made her happy. And no living your best life can compete when you're truly happy.